Georgia might very well win the national championship. I mean, Georgia, if anyone goes and sees Georgia win a natty, would that surprise you? It wouldn't me, but they have a lot of things right now that they got to clean up, and there's a few things that they have that can't get fixed. Now, it's been really easy for those from the catbird seat and the Monday morning quarterbacks that are sitting there in their recliner to criticize Carson Beck. I get that, all right? I've been critical of Carson Beck. I think his decision-making has left something to be desired. I feel like he's forced the ball a bunch in the last 4 or 5 games. But that is a singular issue amongst a whole host of problems. Now, they just had 245 yards of offense, okay? On 64 plays to have just 245 total yards is a massive issue. For their only touchdown to come on a drive that started inside the opponent's 25-yard line is an issue. To have just 2 explosive plays that went for over 20 yards is a major problem. It'd be easy to say, well, it's just Carson Beck's fault. I'm telling you it's not. As someone who's watched every single offensive snap of Georgia this year, their problems extend far beyond Carson Beck, okay? They don't have a true number 1 wide receiver. They lead the nation in drops. Their 2 best true wide receivers were kicked off the team earlier this year. People kept saying, well, Bowers and McConkey, those guys being gone, that's the problem. They don't have those 2 reliable safety blankets in Bowers and McConkey. Last year, Brock Bowers had an ankle injury and missed multiple games. Ladd McConkey was out for a vast majority of the first half of the season with a back injury. Those guys missed tons of time last year, and the offense didn't suffer. So it's clearly not just about Bowers and McConkey. It's about the fact that this group of wide receivers, they can't separate. They can't explode downfield. So much of what they do in the offense is catch and run. They throw screens, and they hope those guys miss tackles, and they honestly haven't been able to do that with a lot of regularity. Their routes are terrible. I see on several occasions they don't stem routes. They're not setting up defenders. It's just a lack of attention to details at wide receiver. Plus, did I mention the drops? I did. And I counted 4 this past game. Again, I know it was in weather, though, so I'll give them a little bit of a pass, but the drops have been back-breaking. This game also highlighted something that's been a problem for a couple weeks, and that's the offensive line. Now, you're going to look and say, well, look at the pressure rate that they've had this year, and look at this and look at that. Well, they haven't really at any point been very effective running the football. I mean, if you look at how their running backs have handled, Trevor Etienne, he had 6 carries for 24 yards. Most of the game was on the sideline because of the rib injury that he suffered against Florida, so Nate Frazier had to go in. He averaged less than 4 yards a carry. That's not going to get it done. He also had a fumble and put the ball on the deck again. So the trust that they have in the freshman running back isn't there. Their offensive line, when they're calling screens to their wide receivers, you would hope that those offensive linemen would get out on screens. Well, Carson Beck threw 12 screens or throws at the line of scrimmage. He completed just 9 for 53 yards. So that's not very good because they're not getting the second level plays. And I just think this offense really lacks the downfield threat, or they lack the willingness to try it downfield. Then you look at the 5 sacks given up. And their left tackle, Ernest Green, has struggled. Their right guard, Tate Ratledge, he was out of the game early because he gave up a couple of early pressures and 1 early sack. Like, they're mixing and matching pieces. And frankly, altogether, the offensive line is what I think lost them the game as much as anything in this game. The offensive line was just flat out not good. And then on defense, if their pressure isn't up, if they can't rush the passer, the defensive secondary has had some challenges this year. So they have to be able to rush the passer, and they couldn't apply pressure in this game. So I am a little bit worried about this Georgia team. Like I said, I've been worried about this Georgia team before, only to see them flip the script and have an amazing game the following week. But my goodness, man, the pressure is now at an all-time high for a Kirby Smart coached football team heading into this game against Tennessee next week. Can they win it? Absolutely. Can they get things righted? I think so for sure. But they need to have a good, long, hard look in the mirror about how they're attacking opposing defenses and how they're attacking opposing quarterbacks. That is what they're going to need to figure out.